And this is interview again with Bob Flitton by Rob Flitton. And we just finished talking about the Cougar at College Heights Secondary, but let's wheel back a few years to the late 60s. So you decided to move back to Prince George after you were in
My
Parksville.
dad, yeah, I was working with my dad with a furniture store in Parksville, and he sold the business. And I had to go and find something to do. And I saw an ad in the Vancouver Sun one day advertising for an appliance salesman in Prince George. So I phoned the guy that had the ad in the paper and spoke to him on the telephone, told him about my sales experience and that I had lived in Prince George, and he knew who I was. So he said, come on up, I'll hire you. So we loaded all the stuff in our U-Haul trailer and went back to Prince George.
Well, I was probably about 5. I distinctly remember this was the winter of 1967. And we drove up. Maybe 68, 67. It was a very
I would
cold,
guess 68
it
actually.
was a very cold wintry drive. This was in the winter.
That's right, we drove through snow all the way up.
Your parents helped you move.
They drove with us, that's correct. And that's when we moved into Ben Estey Place.
Right. And that was a little place. There was a renter downstairs and you had the upstairs, and nice big yard for the kids, nearby a school, the whole thing.
Right.
And you went to work for this appliance company. You didn't spend very long there though. You got into selling houses or something?
The store was called Prince George Electric, and I was there for a year or so. I really didn't care for the manager that much, and things just weren't clicking all that well. And Hoover Appliances advertised in the Prince George paper for an appliance salesman selling appliances across northern British Columbia. So I went and talked to them, and they hired me, and I was responsible for selling Hoover vacuum cleaners and washing machines to stores, Hudson's Bay, different stores like that, from Prince George to Prince Rupert. And I drove back and forth along the highway. And it was a job, it was living, it was kind of interesting, fun, getting out and seeing the country. But, and in between, I can't remember all the sequences, but I also sold life insurance for a while. Regardless, I got tired of selling vacuum cleaners, and I was in Vancouver visiting, and my aunt said to me, she said, you know, I have a friend by the name of Wayne Thompson who owns a new home construction company in Prince George. You should go and talk to him about selling new houses. So when I got back to Prince George, I phoned him and I said, I understand you're a friend of my aunt, and I'd like to talk to you about selling houses. He said, well, come on in and see me. And I went in, we had a 20-minute discussion, and he hired me. And I remember it was a pretty good wage. I was, compared to what I had been making, I thought, wow, this is improving, this is nice. But the biggest thing was that the first time I sold a house, it was right away, and it was easy. But the nice part was you were doing something wonderful for people. You were putting them into a new home, and what could you do that's nicer than that? I've just realized this was really nice work. So we designed the houses, we did the color schemes, we bought the lots, we kind of planned the whole program, and then we sold the houses. And I became very, very successful at that. I literally was, everybody knew that you want to buy a new house, phone Bob Flitton at Thompson Construction. And I sold a lot of houses. I sold myself one. We moved into one on
Abbott Crescent.
Abbott Crescent. Sold Uncle Dick and Auntie Joanna a house. Sold different friends' houses, and it was just fun. Became very, very successful at selling houses. Until one day a man came in to see me, George Crusoe, and he said to me, there's a group of builders, I can't remember, I think there was about 9 of them, are getting together and they're forming a company called College Heights Land Development Company. In fact, the company was formed, it was managed by a fellow by the name of Bill Fairclough. But we want to get a new land development manager in to run that company. And I'm going to offer you the job because it's good for us in 2 ways. Number one, we're going to have a good young man running our company, but secondly, we're removing you as competition to our house sales. But he said there's one condition. He said you have to go and get Wayne Thompson to agree to this. So I remember I went back to Wayne Thompson and I said, George Crusoe has offered me a job of manager at Heights Land Development Company, providing you will agree to it. And Wayne said, I think this is wonderful. He said, you and I'll work together and we'll make that company a real success. So it was all positive all the way around, and I became general manager of Heights Land Development Company. And they set a target of, they wanted me to subdivide and develop 400 houses in 5 years, and we hit 450 houses in 4 years, so it was ahead of schedule. Back in those days, building lots were like $2,900. In fact, I remember the day that we had to bump the price from $2,900 to $3,500, thinking, oh God, we'll never sell another lot. It, back today, it's just silly because today
This is probably about 1972-ish.
I guess, I don't know.
That would have been around the time your third son was born, in October of
No,
72.
no, no, 72? No, wait a minute.
73?
When was the Kamloops by-election? That was 81, right? Yeah, this was the early 70s, that's right.
So this is around the time your third son, Bradley's born, October 72. You lived on Abbott when he was born.
Okay.
And then you would have gone up to College Heights a year or two later to move up there. You built a house up there on Moriarty Crescent. Do you remember building that house?
Yeah, absolutely.
You got a discount on a lot, and
The house that we built on Abbott was a Thompson construction home.
right.
And then I went to work for Heights Land Development Company, and the first thing I did when I got working up there was found myself a lot that I wanted to buy, a piece of ground, and literally subdivided the street and subdivided off this one lot for myself. And we built a house on there. That was quite a nice home at the time, actually.
I remember it well. And so move up to College Heights. You now got 5 people at home to take care of, plus a wife. 5 kids to take care of, plus a wife. And you spent the next few years doing land development up there, probably to the late 70s?
Yeah, 1979, I think, was it we moved to Kamloops.
Well, that was the year your oldest son, me, I went to Australia. I took off for a year as an exchange student, and then you went to Kamloops that year, that fall.
We moved to Kamloops while you were in Australia, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
What was all that about? You got offered a job with another land development company?
Well, what had happened in about 1977 was I quit working for Heights Land Development Company and went to work for Central Homes.
The Cruzos.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, the market was bad and things weren't going all that great. And one day I got a phone call from a fellow in Vancouver who said to me, "Are you Bob Flitton?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "We need to talk to you in Vancouver. Would you come to Vancouver, please? Go and get the next airplane and we'll buy your ticket and everything." So I went down to Vancouver and they told me to go to a certain office. I went down to what they call the Bentall Center in Vancouver and walked up to the 29th floor of this nice, beautiful office building and in and sat down, and they introduced me to the man that owned the building by the name of Bob Bentall. He and his brother, Bob and Clark Bentall. And they said, "We've been searching around. We have a big property in Kamloops. We need a good land development manager, and we've searched all over the place, and your name keeps coming up as the guy that we should hire." So they talked to me, and bottom line is they offered me a deal I just couldn't say no to. So I went to work for Bentall Investments in Kamloops, starting up and operating a community called Aberdeen Hills, which is today about a third of the Kamloops community.
That must have been pretty heady stuff. Boy from sort of a small towns, and you're in a big skyscraper in Vancouver all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah, it was beautiful. It was unbelievable. You know, nice clothes and nice dinners and lunches. And it was just a world that I was completely unaccustomed to. Everything was really first class.
So you moved to Kamloops.
I was involved in politics too, in Prince George and in Parksville.
1975, you were involved with Bill Bennett, weren't you?
That's right. We helped get him elected as the president of the Social Credit Party, and then we helped his first election campaign beat Dave Barrett. I was campaign manager for a fellow by the name of Howard Lloyd in Prince George. He was the first guy in the province declared elected, I think, if I remember correctly. Very successful campaign. And then we got down to, I also campaigned with Jack Heinrich and Bruce Strachan. And then we got down to Kamloops, and Kamloops by-election was on while we were there. You remember that well. That was a lot of fun.
1981.
They told us that we could never win. The Self-Creds were 19% behind in the polls, and they said you might as well just put your money in the bank and wait for the next election because you're not going to win this one. I remember a news announcer said NDP can run a broom handle and win, and that made me mad.
There was a comment about bulldozers.
Well, no, just a minute. And so I sat down at my desk and I wrote a letter to Bill Bennett and I said, I just heard on the radio that the NDP could run a broom handle and win this election up here. I want you to know that Socrates can win, but there's one condition, you have to listen to me. So a couple of weeks later, I get a phone call one day and this fellow was Flitton, and I said, yeah, my name's Jerry Harris, I want to see you downtown. So I went down, Kamloops, had lunch with him, and he said, I don't know who you are, but he said, I'm mad at you. And I said, why? And he said, well, he says, Premier was hoping that we would win this election, now he expects us to. He says, it's impossible, you know, what are you proposing that you might do to win? And I said, well, you just listen to what I got to say and I think you'll win it. And the first thing you gotta do is get rid of all the airs and the politics around this community and just deal like normal human beings with the regular Joe and communicate and work hard, campaign hard. We got the home builders involved. We had the largest community involvement, I would say, on a percentage of population basis we ever had. We had something like 800 people that worked on our election. Candidate by the name of Claude Richmond.
Claude Richmond, yeah.
Who was a great candidate, nice man. And anyways, we ended up winning the election. I remember I got a call on election night I think it was from Jack Heinrich, and he said, Bob, we're in a jet above Kamloops, flying around in circles, waiting for the election results. And we'd like to come down to the airport, but the Premier doesn't want to land unless he knows that we have won. What can you tell me? And I said, come on down, because you're winning. And I was very, very confident we were going to win. So they came in, and as it turned out, we only won by a few hundred votes, but we did win. It was the biggest election upset in BC history.
If my memory serves me, that was May 13th, 1981.
You have a much better memory than I do. Something like that.
All right, we'll pause for a second.